What's up everyone? Alex here. I must admit that even though there's been a bunch of virtual YouTubers these days, the idea of virtual celebrities baffled me. Take Hatsune Miku for example. Outside of the songs I've heard, I knew very little of her and why she appealed to such a passionate fanbase. Was it because her music borders on both the synthetic and the familiar? Was it because of the kinds of publicity that she's gotten, from ads with Toyota to performing live on stage? It's because of this curiosity that I accepted a game code from SEGA to review Hatsune Miku Project Diva MegaMix, and to my astonishment, this curiosity turned into an outright admiration of the passionate community of fans and makers that have breathed life into the virtual persona, one who could sing and dance with the best of the best. Hatsune Miku Project Diva MegaMix is a rhythm action game based in the long-running Project Diva franchise and is the first game in the series to appear on a non-Sony platform. This gameplay was played and recorded on a launch model Nintendo Switch. As with most rhythm games, your goal is to press the correct button in time with the beat of the song playing, when its button prompt reaches the corresponding target marker. However, unlike traditional rhythm games such as Guitar Hero or Taiko no Tatsujin, where the prompts come from a single direction on a highway, Hatsune Miku's prompts can come from any direction, with its target marker spread across the entire screen. Couple this with the vibrant and distracting visuals happening in the background, and you can imagine that this isn't going to be as easy as you might think. It's this one distinct difference that draws comparisons to games like Oendan or, to some degree, the Persona dancing games. The awareness you need to process what's happening on screen at any given moment is why this game also has the action descriptor in its genre to describe it, as this kind of rhythm game feels like an extension of the shoot-'em-up genre that was popular many years ago. It's in this sense that if you're used to more traditional rhythm games, the transition to playing Hatsune Miku Project Diva MegaMix may be a bit challenging. I personally pride myself in doing quite well when it comes to playing traditional rhythm games, and I thought that after learning how Project Diva MegaMix played, that I could easily 100% any song. Trying to play a random song on normal served me a quick dose of humble pie however, as the best I could do out of the gate was a passing grade. A whopping 50% of the song. This may sound frustrating, given that later difficulties and songs will throw a bunch of prompts at you. But each target marker also has a clock that tells you approximately when prompts will hit, which is usually to the beat of the playing song. You'll just have to quickly figure out which markers trigger first on screen, then go from there. To throw a slight wrench into this formula, easy and normal versions of the songs contain a challenge mode, a portion of the song where it increases the difficulty by a notch, presenting prompts and markers that you normally won't encounter. The inclusion of this mode is a great way to give you the confidence you need to see if you're at a point where challenging a more difficult version of a song is feasible. One thing I should mention is that the directions on the D-pad are also mapped to the corresponding face buttons on the Switch, meaning A is mapped to right and B is mapped to down, and so on and so forth. In higher difficulty levels, you're often asked to hold down certain buttons in order to take advantage of a maximum hold bonus, which rewards you with additional points by holding down a button longer than you should be able to. This basically means that in times when I need to be holding down the A button, for example, that I need to actually press and hold right on the D-pad instead so that I can still hit A prompts when needed. I'm certain that there's more efficient ways of dealing with these, but I merely wanted to illustrate this as an example of the kinds of depth of strategy and dexterity that MegaMix expects of you. And quite honestly, it's kind of fun to try and come up with these kinds of techniques for this game. One of the things that I realized as I played through MegaMix's library of songs is that its song lineup gives us a glimpse into the history of the famous Vocaloid singer. Unbeknownst to me, the tutorial, which plays Ievan Polka by Loituma and features a Chibi Miku waving around a Welsh onion like a conductor baton, is a reference to a video from the early days of the character. The original video apparently became so popular that it prompted her creators to explore making content with her in different media, leading to the kinds of successes Miku enjoys today. And while the game doesn't feature any sort of traditional story whatsoever, it does feel as though MegaMix's carefully curated song selections collectively tell its own unique narrative. In fact, many of the songs featured in MegaMix span Hatsune Miku's decade-long career, giving each song a sense of importance and legacy, one that is continually built upon with every iteration of Project Diva. Prior to playing MegaMix, I was only somewhat familiar with Miku's songs that featured fast electronic beats, so I was genuinely pleased to find a wide variety of songs to play. Some of my favorite songs in Project Diva MegaMix have been, in fact, slower ballads, though that doesn't mean that these songs' prompts and markers get any easier. I personally think that the key to a good rhythm game is having good prompts and markers mapped that match the game's and the song's energy and feel, and judging from many of the songs I played out of MegaMix's large library of 101 songs, the mapping in these notes stays true to the action experience that the Project Diva series wants to deliver. Here's a small sampling of some of my favorite songs in the game. One of the things that separates MegaMix from previous Project Diva games is the new mode that shares the game's name. MegaMix mode is an entirely different way of playing Project Diva and feels a bit closer to traditional rhythm games as you can get. Bubbles of different sizes fall from the top of the screen to the bottom, and it's your job to touch them using the paddles below. You move these paddles by using a pair of Joy-Cons to control each, twisting each Joy-Con to move them left or right. When these bubbles touch any part of your paddle, you'll need to press or hold the corresponding trigger button to hit the beat. Every song in MegaMix has been tuned specifically for this mode, and it's a fun way to experience the game in a totally new light. However, while I appreciate the inclusion of this mode, I personally have what appears to be the beginnings of carpal tunnel that makes twisting my wrist an uncomfortable experience, and it's because of this that I vastly prefer the original gameplay. Additionally, there's also a touch mode that was added in the Japanese version of the game that was unfortunately not available at the time of my review. In addition to these new modes of play, Project Diva MegaMix also features a more detailed anime rendering style compared to the somewhat quote-unquote realistic renditions found in more recent games. While I'd imagine that the art style shift was necessary due to the change in hardware, I'm very pleased with the way the characters and environments appear on screen. The visuals accompanying each returning song is authentically recreated in MegaMix's new rendering style, and what you're watching right now demonstrates the visual differences for each Project Diva game across 4 different platforms for the same song. Much like prior games, MegaMix allows you to customize the dancers on screen using the currency you've earned from playing the game's songs. For some reason, I thought that changing a song's dancers would also change the song's vocals, but alas, that's not the case here. Additionally, for longtime Project Diva fans who are picking up MegaMix, the developers also included a way for players to replace the Switch's button prompts and markers to reflect the PlayStation's square, circle, cross, and triangle buttons. This, along with the thoughtful creation of MegaMix's song list, reflects the kind of community awareness that really makes me appreciate the effort that went into the creation of MegaMix. To be honest, I didn't really know what to expect when I took on the task of reviewing Hatsune Miku Project Diva MegaMix. Sure, I had expected some sort of music game that I'd probably be playing for a few hours then put down, but after spending several hours here and there playing the game and thinking about what I've experienced, coupled with experiencing those key, quote-unquote, just one more song moments that pushed me to explore its song list further, I began to realize that I finally understood the fandom behind Hatsune Miku. It's in this sense that MegaMix is, to me, a fine distillation of the Vocaloid idol's decade-long career, with its carefully curated songs that show the breadth and legacy of a cultural icon whose presence at Coachella this year would have been a landmark event that many, I'd assume, would have embraced and treasured. And while a game certainly doesn't match a live event's scale and overwhelming impression, Hatsune Miku Project Diva MegaMix's impact to me felt just as big, thanks to its fast and frenetic action gameplay, accentuated by its strong visual aesthetic and memorable song list.